the Dragon Boat Festival is an occasion of origin, I would like to briefly talk about a few origins. The first origin everyone knows, the Dragon Boat Festival in traditional Han Chinese folk tradition. On one hand, it is for many people a special holiday. Everyone commemorates Ku Yuan, the renowned and respected famous poet. This is also a cause and effect. There is another cause and condition. Apparently, people wanted his body so that it would not be eaten by fish or other animals. Throwing Zongzi into the river also symbolizes warding off evil and dispelling demons. Or you could say it serves as a kind of disinfection. This is another cause and condition. Although this is just one explanation, sometimes such explanations become cause and condition. All phenomena are created by the mind. So nowadays, among Han Chinese people who deeply value and cherish their long-standing traditions and cultural heritage, on this day, people buy mugwort leaves. Or sometimes, including us now burning incense or performing smoke offerings such as these, also possess a certain power and effect. So on this special day for all of us, I want to share with everyone, as I mentioned the other day, the transmission of Yamantaka, a sacred Buddhist practice which is revered by many, and transmission of Vajrayana mantra. But is there transmission of Padmasambhava's wrathful form? To be honest, I'm not entirely clear about it. I'll start with Yamantaka, the transmission of the Yamantaka sadhana. Today I'll recite it. Today is the Dragon Boat Festival. Many people are sending messages on their phones wishing others a peaceful Dragon Boat Festival. We want to be safe and well. On the one hand, eating zongzi is also definitely a good way. Actually, I really don't like eating zongzi. Today I swallowed a few with my eyes closed. Honestly, I don't really like zongzi. Even if you don't like something, no matter how much others praise it, sometimes it's a matter of karma. A personal issue with taste. They'll say, it's delicious. They urge you to eat. But sometimes it's still a bit difficult. But no matter what, I still go along with everyone else. I see a lot of people are paying special attention to it today. So eating zongzi is definitely important too. But what's even more important is reciting the mantra of Vajrabhairava. So many disasters in the world, so many different kinds of things, whether it's dragons or many other non-human beings. This year, the world really needs to protect itself in many ways. So at this moment, we should proceed to recite the lineage of the Yamantaka sadhana, previously transmitted by His Holiness Jigme Phuntsol. This is, in fact, a transmission specifically and especially for the Dragon Boat Festival. This is essentially the first aspect of the origin. The second aspect is that I just want to briefly share two stories about rainbows with you. I didn't want to talk about this because it might involve me personally. There are some things I don't really like to talk about, and I feel a bit embarrassed too. Generally speaking, I might be rather tends to be quite conservative, especially when it comes to personal matters, including when I used to travel with His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok, which happened quite often whenever it involved stories or narratives that were specifically related to myself. I would generally, for the most part, talk about them very. Last year, I wrote something called Memoirs of Dream Dust. It was about a pilgrimage I took with my guru, 30, which lasted for more than 6 months and covered several countries. This included experiences in India, Bhutan, Nepal, and so on. Whenever I come across certain things about myself, I don't want to keep writing about them, but I feel some are actually quite authentic. Some I simply wrote down and some I didn't. But today, personally speaking, I think there are two things I'll share a bit. Maybe they have some significance. Maybe it doesn't necessarily make sense at first glance. Anyway, I'd like to take just a moment to share them with you here. One thing that is very, very important. Back in the very place where I was born, there was a communal land belonging to our Luakema tribe, a piece of land, a shared area that everyone in the community used together. I was born in 1962, but at that time, we didn't handle those procedures there. Not like in other big cities. But on my ID card, it says 1963. It is just like how it is for so many Africans, because as we know in the past, many things about his birth are in fact not very accurate. Whatever you said it was, that's exactly what it became. And well, as for that place, Dharma King Rinpoche, alive, a lay practitioner donated about 60 or 70,000 yuan, asking me to build a stupa right there. But I just left it aside and didn't pay much attention to it. Years ago, some people there said they wanted to build something there. I saw that some other Khenpos and Khenmos, a lot of people were building things. So at that time, in that case, I neither agreed nor objected, to be honestly. Just simply turned a blind eye and let it be. Later, I handed the money over to them, and it seems that they apparently built a small stupa. I didn't see it or take it seriously. A few days ago, it was around June 21st, several Tibetan staff members from our Larong restaurant went on the pilgrimage to Tagong, other monasteries. Somehow, in the end, they ended up going there as well. When they arrived there, they said that an absolutely stunning, beautiful rainbow was seen in the sky. I honestly don't know if it was really real or not, but it is important that what we present is real and authentic, because it seems there was no rain that day, sky blue, white clouds. That day was also a solar eclipse, and it was the last day of the Sakya month, as well as Father's Day. Seems several special dates coincided. At that time, when they went on pilgrimage, as was their custom each year, they said that some rainbows appeared on the stupa. I wondered then whether it was real or not, but later on it genuinely appeared, or at least it really seemed that it should actually be real. Recently, Khenpo called me saying that there was such a rainbow. Would you say, is that true or false? I told him those people are still alive. That way, if you have any questions or concerns, you can simply reach out to them directly. I was not there in person either, actually. So it does have some significance because the overall layout and aspects of it are quite rare. Rainbows often appear after it rains, but usually when the sky is blue with white clouds and the sun is strong, for such a phenomenon to appear, maybe it's an auspicious sign. Not attached, let alone attached to phenomena. I'm even less attached to rainbows. No need to be attached, but perhaps in the future could it become, if various auspicious conditions gather around some stupas, for example, for the sick, for longevity, and also for things like everything going smoothly if such conditions are present. I don't know whether such conditions exist or not. In any case, it should in fact be a fact. If it's a fact, then mentioning it isn't necessarily a bad thing. That's certainly one aspect of it. The second aspect is there was another rainbow. I think it was in 2015, if I remember correctly. When I went to Peking University, I felt both excited and a bit nervous. At that time, I gave a lecture at the School of Education at Peking University. It should have been June 6th, a Sunday. In the afternoon, we were supposed to start at 2 o'clock, scheduled 2 hours. But later that day, there were quite a lot of questions. We finished at around 4:30, just as we had planned. There were quite a lot of people that day. Originally, we had arranged for a large lecture hall that could hold 500 people. But later, because more people showed up, there were 600 or 700 people. Everyone eventually ended up sitting in the stairways. There was truly nothing else we could do at all. That day, right after we had just finished absolutely everything, actually my visits to Peking University, 2009-19, over those 10 years, I went there 9 times in total and gave them many lectures as well. But none of the other times were like this. But that time, on June 6, 2015, right after we finished the class, when we slowly walked out of the classroom, there was an especially beautiful, stunning rainbow on campus arching in the sky. We exited through the East Gate. And we were driving away. It seemed like the rainbow lasted for a very long time. The driver and the teachers who were with us at the time, they said, we are already, in our 50s or 60s now. But in Beijing, it was the first time we had ever seen such a magnificent rainbow. Some people are fascinated by, wow, it looks good. How about this? This could also, in fact, be regarded as a sign of good fortune. From that moment on, I think in many different aspects, later on, actually, perhaps especially in spreading Dharma and benefiting sentient beings, things went quite smoothly. There's even a short video of that rainbow now, though it might be a bit brief. You can try playing the game or song twice if you want. More rainbows in mountains. You see them in big cities. If any of you are from Beijing, by any chance, for many of you here or from elsewhere, seeing rainbows in the city is a normal thing, right? In the past, His Holiness, the wish-fulfilling jewel, once, he was around 1986. There was a master from abroad who was particularly arrogant in front of Guru Rinpoche. When I was teaching the Dharma somewhere, a rainbow appeared. His Holiness said, what's the big deal about rainbows? Rainbows are fairly common in the summer. Because the source of rainbows is rainwater, sunlight, and humidity, when various conditions come together, rainbows appear frequently. It's not really a clear sign of your merit. That Lama has now passed away. His name was the respected Chaim Rinpoche. He didn't say anything. He just waited there in silence. Then he continued, do you know? I have manifested all sorts of miracles. His Holiness seemed displeased. He took his time and carefully refuted his arguments one by one. Sometimes these things really aren't that significant either. In fact, sometimes His Holiness, the wish-fulfilling jewel, pay attention to these dependent arisings. The rainbow we saw at Sarnath in India, or when the foundation was laid for the main assembly hall at Larungar, that rainbow shaped like a white cloud. There are many Dharma kings outside, including auspicious signs in the Six Bardos transmission in Daofu. These also arise due to certain dependent conditions. On one hand, sometimes it's the inconceivable blessing of the three jewels. Dependent arising's power is inconceivable. Perhaps with our impure human eyes as humans, we can only truly perceive some rather unusual external conditions. Apart from that, the true inner qualities of wisdom and compassion sometimes may not necessarily be visible to us. So sometimes we can also regard these external auspicious signs as a kind of genuine manifestation. At other times, we can also see them as inherently dreamlike, illusory, like clouds, phenomena that are not existent. Of course, for each of us as practitioners, depending on our own faith, depending on our own wisdom, and based on our own observation of causes, conditions, and appearances, we decide is it beneficial or harmful. It is equivalent to an unremembered method. All of these are possible. For each person, there are also simply different possibilities. Generally speaking, as for these things, as you all know, I probably don't like to talk about them much. Even if I did, there isn't much to say. Because as ordinary people, whether it's giving teachings or traveling, it's all plain and there's nothing to say. If I talked about it, not much to say. But sometimes, maybe I do actually mention it just a little bit. Sometimes when it involves things about myself, I feel it's pointless. For example, His Holiness, the Wish-Fulfilling Jewel, wrote a long life prayer for me. But in any situation, really, if someone recites it, I oppose it. When reciting it, I just leave right away and just ignore them. So when it comes to myself, relatively speaking, I probably don't really like using insincere, pretentious words. But sometimes maybe could it be that for sentient beings, for certain circumstances, there is definitely some meaning to it. That can't really be denied either. I don't really know myself. But today, since it's said to be the Dragon Boat Festival, I was thinking some may think by relying on this special time, there are certain auspicious ties. Some people think this is purely superstition, while others believe that whatever you do on this day, there will definitely, without a doubt, be some truly unique karmic connections. So maybe everyone really does have their own perspective on this. After all, everyone has different ways of approaching it, and each person may choose their own unique method, and all of them should be allowed and are reasonable. This is a simple, straightforward, forward movement in a straight line. Now let's talk about the main practice. We still need to recite the lineage once again, today's final lineage. It is raining again outside, isn't it, right? This morning, no cloud in the sky. Now, it's actually rained several times, hasn't it? It seems like in several places there have been quite serious floods recently, as you know, right? Did you watch the news? You did? So how is it really? Can you just tell us a little bit more about it, if you don't mind, please? Where, Chongqing, and where else? You didn't watch all of it. You just couldn't bear to watch, right? You didn't watch it thoroughly. That's still okay. That brings us to the end of the talk. Thank you for your attention. How many sessions have we had? 10th class, is that correct? Yes, that's fine with me. I have no objections to 10th class, and it's completely okay. 10 sessions, right? That's actually not too bad. It's truly something to be happy about, having this opportunity this year. But we need to transform it into the path. Why does it seem, at least to me, just a bit like, I didn't recite that just now, did I? You embraced the world. You made 500 vows. Hearing your name, none return. I respectfully prostrate to the compassionate teacher. Next, we will discuss the final part of transforming suffering and happiness into the path. Previous. In ultimate truth, suffering transformed into the path. In reality, turning suffering into the path. Ultimately, transforming happiness into the path. And the way to turn happiness into the path in ordinary reality have all been discussed. Next, we will talk about these two aspects once again as we proceed with continuing the analysis. If, when experiencing suffering, the mind is tormented and thus unable to practice the true Dharma, feeling happy, one is so absorbed in pleasure that one cannot practice, then there is simply no opportunity to truly practice the Dharma at all. For practitioners like this, there is probably nothing more truly heartbreaking or tragic than this. This is really very important. Many of us, for example, unfortunately have poor health or have recently faced many difficulties and become fearful, or perhaps lack food or clothing. I'm in a bad mood, or the external conditions are unfavorable, such as bad weather. As ordinary people, we often experience all sorts of suffering. Because of this suffering, you might feel, oh, I am suffering. Now there's nothing you can do. Some people have trouble at work, or discord in the family, or poor health, and so on. All sorts of reasons. Just in such cases, you feel you can't practice at all. When you suffer, you just endure it, wondering if you can get through this pain. You think, once I get through this, I'll practice teachings, and it goes on like this. When you're happy, you sometimes get lost in your sense of happiness. This is something we do easily. Didn't we talk about this yesterday? So when you're happy, wow, I've been especially happy lately. Right now, for example, some people who are happy keep traveling, sightseeing, and enjoying themselves, or spend all day watching TV and movies, going to bars, maybe casually wandering around just about everywhere, or every day is just eating and drinking, listening to music, watching shows. Every day is spent indulging in these self-proclaimed so-called pleasures and not practicing at all. Recently, I've been hanging out with friends. I have been quite successful in my career recently, so I've been really happy lately and just can't practice. So many of us attended the class before. For those not diligent, suffering keeps them from practice the next day. It's because of happiness that they don't practice. No happiness or suffer. In a state of unconsciousness, a sort of dazed condition, just foolishly and simply waiting around patiently every single day after day with nothing much going on at all, just muddling through life day after day. Some people are neither suffering nor happy, but are just stuck in a very boring state. In that case, there's never really time to genuinely practice the true Dharma. In the human world, we're suffering or happy or in a neutral state. Other than that, there's really nothing else. So for a practitioner, there's probably nothing more tragic than this. Your life is really so short. Keep practice for this reason. Next moment, you don't practice for that. And you really end up without a good opportunity to practice. There just isn't time anymore. That's why the great masters of the past were truly different. Every time they faced suffering, the pain was unavoidable. But even in the midst of suffering, they kept going. Look at all the historic changes that happened in Tibet at the time. But amidst all these changes, he never gave up on his own spiritual practice. He never abandons teaching Dharma or meditation. Later, he became joyful. Some people get rich and famous, acquire money and so on. They have everything. But even at that time, he still would not give up either. Just because he truly and undoubtedly possessed all this glory and all these riches in his possession, he did not become lost in sensual pleasures. He was not like that. So for many of us here today, in the future, we will definitely have to face these things. You will be miserable, since all kinds of things can happen in life, or you'll be happy. Because of worldly wealth and fame, including your own appearance when you are young, you might feel satisfied with yourself. You might think, I really am like a celestial being. Where in the world is there anyone as good looking as me? The more you look in the mirror, the happier you get, so happy you can hardly stand it. Sometimes you even shout out loud, wow, just like that. You feel extremely happy and you don't practice at all. You hear your Dharma texts, as well as everything else, a full 100 meters away. But sometimes you feel especially miserable. You think, who is as miserable as me? I suffer more than beings in hell. I suffer more than hungry ghosts. I suffer more than animals, as people often say, as is often mentioned, and so on. Dharma is out of question. So in this way, suffering and happiness alternate, ebb and flow. In the end, there isn't really a single moment of genuine practice. For practitioners, this is a sad thing. Therefore, what should we do ourselves? We don't know the future. Maybe happiness, maybe suffering. Every sentient being's karma is different. Some people throughout their lives are relatively stable and healthy. There aren't any major ups and downs, so it's still acceptable. Their mood is also okay. Some people are just a bit more pessimistic, with a stern face every day, like that. Some are indeed more cheerful, every day a bit, maybe with a bit more happiness in them, more bitter ingredients. But some people aren't like this. Sometimes they're happy, sometimes they're suffering. When they're truly happy, they're like radiant, heavenly beings. When they're suffering, they're often like yakshas. They keep changing back and forth. And people are like this. But no matter what, we might still have to walk this path ourselves, after all. At times like this, try your best not to give up on your own practice as much as you can. Some people, you know what they say? I don't have time to argue right now. Let me recite my prayers first. After I finish reciting, then I'll have an argument with you. This is also acceptable, right? Because they still value their practice very much. But it's true that they won't give up arguing either. This kind of person might not be the most pitiful, because when they're really suffering, he still hasn't given up on his practice, right? Practicing while suffering, practicing while happy, whether in pain or in joy, we continue to practice, always moving forward. What is truly needed is, from a worldly perspective, if a person's character and behavior are relatively stable, others will feel a sense of security and find them reliable. Whether it's a person's emotions or actions, in any situation, no matter what, if there are especially big changes, it brings a sense of insecurity to others. So we should try our best. For you learned Buddhism before faith, or when your practice wasn't going well, the impression you might perhaps have given to those who were actually around you at any given moment could be you seemed very lovable, and at times hateful it could be like. But in the future, if our practice improves even a little, then even if deep down inside we are experiencing great pain and discomfort, we should try our best not to show it in our outward expression. If we don't reveal it, then to those around us, simply, except for those with clairvoyance, it won't be very obvious. In this way, perhaps a person can still maintain this quality in daily life and in their practice, which is also really very good. This includes some of our Dharma teachers and instructors, some of whom are quite cultivated. Although he was not very happy at the time on the surface, they might just hint at it indirectly, mentioning it only slightly but not making it obvious. But some people who are more excitable or emotional in classroom, sometimes they appear especially happy in front of everyone, so excited that they almost start dancing like a Vajra dance on the Dharma seat. At other times, they are overwhelmed with sorrow, even on the Dharma seat, with their silent tears soaking the scriptures in front of them. This kind of behavior might not really be considered very appropriate either. Of course, sometimes, perhaps some great masters also have different personalities. If you look at the biography of Atisha, it's true that there's some unpredictability between joy and suffering.
This includes His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok, who outwardly sometimes showed a wrathful aspect that was frightening, and at other times appeared extremely joyful as well. Sometimes he seemed especially so when witnessing the suffering of sentient being. He would cry and feel heartbroken. And there were moments too. So whether it is each and every Dharma master or in our ordinary daily lives, time reveals a person's true character. Distance tests a horse's strength. So we should be clear about this. Some people often lose their temper, but though they get angry, they aren't bad people. Some people might think this way. This person doesn't lose temper easily, but once they do, it could be disastrous. Everyone around them might just possibly explode. So each person's character truly result from different karmic forces from past lives. There are many differences, very significant, truly important differences. No matter what, a true practitioner never gives up on their practice. If one can transform suffering and happiness into the path, then whether staying in a quiet place or in the bustling city, or really anywhere at all, wherever you might be, near or far, very quiet, incredibly peaceful aranya, the place, a place with no people, very quiet, they can still stay there. No, it's just really far too lonely here. No, not at all. I'll just stay one night and then leave. Some of our monks are assigned to monasteries, and if the monastery is a bit remote, they won't even stay for one night. They say it's lonely. This isn't the kind of monastery I want. Then they go to another monastery. The other monastery is richer, located in the city and closer by. Wow, this is so messy. I don't even want to stay one night here either. So when a monk typically goes to take over the temple, no matter which monastery it is, they don't want to stay. People like this probably can't transform suffering and happiness into the... There really is a difference. Those who can truly transform suffering and happiness into the path, no matter what kind of quiet place, if it's especially peaceful, you can still practice there. Especially noisy places, cluttered places. It's the same as when we stay in hotels or guest houses at night. Some people dislike car noises nearby, or the sounds of people, or train. They say, wow, I can't even sleep. It's such a hassle. This place is too quiet, too closed off, too oppressive. I can't take it. So for some people, things become adversaries. Didn't we talk about this earlier? For them, nothing works. This isn't right. That isn't right. But those who transform suffering and happiness into the path, they can stay in a quiet place easily. However many days, it's fine. They can also stay in the city without any issue. No matter what kind of particularly bad friends they in fact associate with, even if they are, as we all know, bad friends full of greed, anger, and ignorance after all, he can still get along with them quite well. He will use some special methods to guide and transform them. If they are spiritual teachers or friends, he can also get along with them very well. Some of us can interact with good people and have no way to deal with bad people. Spiritual teachers, bodhisattvas, some who turn suffering into path, they can truly accept good people, and they can also accept bad people. Whether they face ups or downs, pain or joy, even if people praise him and offer to him today, he still sees it as a dream or an illusion. Today he is failing. Maybe he is about to be put in prison, or unfortunately he falls ill and is in a truly miserable, wretched state. In fact, he is suffering greatly. He can also accept it. Whether they encounter prosperity or decline suffering or happiness, whether they happen to hear others praise or even their slander, they can endure and withstand any kind of words, whether they are good or bad, positive or negative. No matter what happens, they never have a fearful heart worrying about losing something themselves. So what do we call such a practitioner? A dedicated practitioner, much like a powerful and noble lion, because they have nothing to fear at all about losing anything themselves. On one hand, perhaps they have realized the state of selflessness. On the other hand, they know that in this cycle of samsara, indeed, after suffering comes happiness, and after happiness comes suffering. Both suffering and happiness are truly impermanent. They also know that in the ultimate truth, everything is empty in nature. And when our suffering arises, they feel it's an opportunity. Now I must immediately practice diligently. When happiness appears, oh, an opportunity has come. I must practice immediately. We talked about this yesterday. A true practitioner does not ever waste suffering. Not at all, nor do they waste happiness. He'll catch this. This needs practice. If you haven't practiced for a long time, you simply cannot. When suffering arises, you probably won't even really think about actually practicing. Parents pass away, or when others slander you. Why are they slandering? I did this and that, and so on, for example. Whatever happens to you, no matter what it is, maybe you feel happy because of praise, happy due to prosperity, happy because you met a really good friend. I am happy to have found a place I long for. And there are unpleasant things like pain, sadness, despair, disappointment, and so on. But if we practice this Dharma well, if our practice is good, whenever, actually, for modern people, this is really important. Sometimes we see many people originally have this kind of motivation. It's not easy to trust the three jewels and genuine aspiration because they can't turn suffering, happiness into the path. They join discord. Many of our dedicated practitioners, when I go out, I often tell them, when you set out, you all walk hand in hand, but by the time you return, you go your separate ways. It should be that you came apart. In the past, we had people, including some Khenmos, even now, as they say, when they were young monks, they would sometimes go out together to play, carrying small tents, and even with 2 or 3 people staying, they would argue. After arguing, they would leave the tent there, and the 3 of them would just quietly leave on their own without saying a word to anyone. Things like this, these situations happened. They hadn't learned to turn suffering into the path. Now, that definitely wouldn't happen, right? I hope that for many of us, the most important thing is if we can't handle relationships, it often hinders the process of practice. It also simply causes obstacles. It also creates obstacles during the process of generating bodhicitta. In this cycle of samsara, it's impossible for everyone to meet your expectations. Sentients have habits. Every sentient being has different karma. Come from Jambudvipa. Western ox-headed from hell realms come from heavenly realms. It's impossible for everyone to go along with you. When spending time with you, sometimes the things they say are incompatible with your personality and your mindset. If I can turn suffering and happiness into the path as such a person, I should be able to get along harmoniously with everyone. Personality. If I can't get along here or there, as I often say, we have a saying in Tibet, it's like putting a bunch of ox horns into one bag. It's impossible for all of them to fit together, right? The shape of ox horns themselves is curved, odd. Please put all of these items into the bag, making sure that every single one is included so that nothing is left out. None of them can possibly fit together. In the same way, at any given moment, at any time, we should all very carefully and thoughtfully observe our own minds with patience. When I say this, maybe in this particular regard, I think I can say this whether at Larung or anywhere else in the world, be it near or far, no matter the distance. My connections and relationships with people in my life are actually basically pretty good. Maybe this is just a kind of arrogance, but whether someone is really a theist or an atheist, both monastics or lay people alike, whether my superiors or my teachers or my disciples or students, I feel that with anyone, if their views don't align with mine, I will say so on the spot, but I don't hold grudges. Afterwards, I can understand other people's different opinions and perspectives. In this way, I think these things are actually closely related to spiritual practice. All these teachings have a close connection. When I was a student, I had a very particular personality. I often got into fights and frequently clashed with others. Mentioned this before? When I was still a student in elementary and middle school, during those early years of my education, I can't recall where I studied or memorized, but I remember fighting with someone here and over there. Every time I see these places, I think, oh, I fought with someone here, fought with someone there. For us young kids in Tibet, when we wanted to fight, we wouldn't do it at school. We would say, all right, let's wait until after class. Let's meet under that tree, and we'd arrange to meet there. Or maybe you're thinking about the spring with its clear, cool water. We're not going there just, if there was a clear landmark, we'd all agree to meet there to fight. This was always our cherished tradition, truly special to us. So I should now, at this point, probably, at the very least, I haven't made any arrangements or plans to fight with anyone at all anymore. After coming to Larungar, I haven't said to anyone let's go and have a battle at the Mandala Arena, or let's fight entrance of Larong Guest House. I've honestly never said anything like that. Not at all. Truly. Absolutely. I get along with everyone and can endure both hardship and happiness. Truly like a lion, when a lion roams the snowy mountains, it is fearless. It is not afraid of any of these things, not afraid of the beasts or wild animals below. If our spiritual practice is truly good, no matter where you go, you will be especially strong. Lack of security, why don't you feel safe? I fear others' opinions of me, afraid of being belittled or looked down upon by others, or maybe I just have a bit of a bad temper. Interacting with others, their inner ugliness shows, and so on, for reason. So if our spiritual practice is truly good, we really are no different from a great lion. In the Han region, there is a text called the Satyasiddhi Shastra, which should have been translated by Kumarajiva. It also discusses a lot about, in detail, the Mahayana traditionally, in particular, refuting the Hinayana. Because in the Hinayana, many dharmas are acknowledged as truly existent, and many arguments address this. So how does it explain this? Both the wise and the foolish experience suffering and happiness. But the wise do not in any circumstance give rise to greed or anger, even amid both suffering and happiness, remaining calm and composed. It is important to note that this is indeed an absolutely significant difference. The wise also experience suffering and happiness. The foolish feel suffering and happiness. Monastics do, and lay people do as well. Everyone experiences suffering and happiness, as long as they are human. Unless someone reached first Bodhisattva Bhumi, there will definitely be experiences of suffering and happiness. But why can the wise turn these into the path, while the foolish cannot transform them into the path? Because when the wise truly experience pain, he won't feel resentful. When they feel joy, they also do not develop greed, create negative karma. This is a very clear and obvious difference between them. Therefore, we should also perhaps, you could, if you wanted to, put a period right here as well. Just to be clear, a practitioner, steadfast, resolute, and bold, fearless like a lion, no matter what they do at all, their mind remains peaceful and joyful. People who transform suffering and happiness into the path, no matter what they do, no matter where they go, no matter what kind of people they interact with from all walks of life, every day, no matter what they choose to eat or wear, they are completely fine with it all and have no complaints. For example, some wise people, if you have the more fancy clothes today, he can do it as well too. If tomorrow they wear clothes like beggars, that's also fine for them. The delicious food I had today was really especially good. And if tomorrow they have nothing, especially if the food is very poor, they can accept that as well. In fact, this is truly what we need in life. This is a state of spiritual cultivation. Such a person is carefree, at ease, with a pure and perfect mind. Because their mind is so pure, their virtuous actions and intentions and their inner sense of happiness are complete and fulfilled. Even though such a person's body is in an impure world, just like us living in this world of 5 impurities. Whether in the city or among all kinds of people, a person's body may reside in an impure land, but what does their mind really enjoy? Like the children of Buddha, in pure lands, inconceivable bliss, truly for us. For each sentence, I find it especially meaningful. We hope that many people from all backgrounds, whether you are listening or those who will study this treatise in the future, we cannot be like bodhisattvas, no pain at all. But at the very least, we need to understand these principles. Then, if we get used to them, I truly believe that many things will change in the near future, because these principles are truly the truth. If they are the truth, as long as we are reasonable people, gradually, at first, we have habitual tendencies like a chronic illness. If we take medicine and adjust gradually, in the end, our chronic illness can be completely cured. There is this possibility. If we can truly transform suffering and happiness into the path, even though our bodies remain impure in crowds in a degenerate world, in the city, or wherever it may be, surrounded by people without faith or with misconceptions, in a confused and impure group of people, our minds can be like those in a pure land, of the Pure Land, and Abhirati Pure Land, like Mahastamaprapta Bodhisattva, Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, and Manjushri Bodhisattva, and Akashagarbha Bodhisattva, just like these bodhisattvas. No matter where these bodhisattvas go in the world, they are not troubled by afflictions, nor are they tormented by suffering in any way at all. So we still very much hope that even though people are just like ordinary beings, need to eat and sleep and need to live whatever kind of life, all of that is still necessary. But their mindset indeed will not be the same as ordinary worldly people. They aren't so sensitive to this kind of suffering. This is just like the great masters of the Kadampa tradition, which in Tibetan Buddhism, the Kadampa school, Kadampa, Nyingma, generally have a great many teachings on practice. So these great masters of the Kadampa school often spoke of controlling happiness and ending suffering. When you are alone, let it be your companion. When you are ill, simply let it be your nurse. What do the great masters of the Kadampa tradition say? These great masters of the past actually said that if we can transform suffering and happiness into the path, can control happiness, because you are too happy, being overly attached to such things as well. Just as we discussed yesterday, as you may recall, gives rise to unwarranted arrogance and a heightened sense of personal pride, often jealousy, as well as laziness and distraction. In fact, nowadays, as we can see in our society, many people are able to be strong when they are suffering. But once they have, especially when it comes to money, if they have wealth, those without merit cannot handle it. I actually mentioned this just the other day as well. If you don't have a truly solid and reliable foundation, it's very difficult for your merit to support it. When someone gets a little money, they immediately buy a car to show off to others. In our Tibetan region, there are some nouveau riches. Immediately, they put on a huge gold ring on their hand, a gold ring here, a gold ring there, and shiny gold ingots, one after another. Everything is gold, but gold is also, in a way, actually perhaps maybe in reality is no different from a stone. It's really just like this. This happiness can't be meaningful. When people get a little money, wow, I am just so incredibly happy and excited right now. Nowadays in Tibet, for a period of time, there are even special clothing shows. And at those times, people wear dozens of kilograms of coral, agate, and amber on their bodies. But in reality, some people might think, person blessed. But actually, it's not really a blessing after all. It's all simply borrowed. A lot of it is borrowed, and even they themselves don't know it. They don't even know if a single Dizai bead is theirs or not. It's really the same in the Han regions. There are some people, and as soon as you see them, well, let's just not talk about it. Otherwise, if I say any more, it might, be a bit. Controlling happiness as a practitioner, if you're too happy, too excited, or too anxious, you'll seem uneasy in front of others. So you need to control your joy. When suffering, don't just stay stuck there either. When you feel pain, transform to a part of your practice and end it. In this way, when you're living alone, when you live by yourself, you won't feel lonely. Such pain, when transformed into practice, should actually be a very good companion. Even if you're alone, if you turn pain into practice, you'll still be very happy. When you're sick, it's as if there's someone out there taking care of you. Here, a nurse doesn't always mean a young nurse in a white cap. As I wrote in Footprints of the Journey, getting an injection, snap, that's not what it means. Here, a nurse is like when you're sick, turn suffering practice. It's really as if there's someone right by your side handing you tea and water, someone who's truly dedicated and wholeheartedly committed to always taking care of you. If you make suffering and happiness practice, no need to rely on anything. Just as Milarepa also once said, when sick, no one asks. When dying, no one cries. If I could die in this cave right here, a yogi would be content. So for us practitioners, indeed, when the time comes, transforming suffering and happiness into the path is probably the best approach. When we listen to the teaching today, everyone will transform suffering and happiness into the path. But after some time, when you start complaining and blaming everything again, doesn't that happen? You haven't practiced. If you truly practice, I believe everyone can become a practitioner who is, in every possible way, as fearless as a lion. Achieve this in turning suffering and happiness into the path. Just as the great masters of the Kadampa tradition have said, everything becomes workable. There is no boredom, no suffering, and you won't feel deeply pessimistic about yourself, as if you've been utterly and completely abandoned by society itself, or truly and completely forsaken by all of your loved ones. You won't feel that way. We reflect on karma of past lives. On the other hand, when suffering arises, this is an excellent opportunity for me. When happiness arises, it is also the best time for practice. The most important thing is when happiness or suffering come, do not give up your practice. Absolutely, do not, no matter what happens. Whether in times of suffering or happiness, reciting prayers or meditating is important. Also transform both happiness and suffering into the path. What does transforming into the path mean? When I am happy, I regard it as a favorable condition. When experiencing suffering, I also regard it as a favorable condition. These are the true instructions for practice from the great masters. They are a secret in the mind. In this way, your suffering will not become an obstacle along your path in your life, and your happiness will not become an obstacle. Otherwise, as ordinary people in our daily lives, we often tend to be just a bit more extreme. When we suffer, we really can't transform it into the path, and we fall into extremes, possibly giving rise to all kinds of anger and hatred, and end up doing many unwholesome things. As a result, we experience suffering in this life and in future lives. When we are happy, we tend to be extreme, not caring about anything and completely disregarding others. This can lead to excesses. This also harms ourselves and others. Therefore, turning suffering and happiness into the path is important. Next, he gives an analogy, actually. Actually, this kind of practice is also indeed very good. It's like a goldsmith putting gold into the fire to refine it. After this purification, since it is still a mineral, the mud, sand, and various stones of all sizes and shapes inside, all of these can be purified, removing some of the impurities. There is also the repeated careful washing with water as part of the process. This is probably how blacksmiths generally work as well, in most cases, at least that's what it seems like from what we can tell. Smiths and silversmiths do the same. They simply need both fire and water. On one hand, it needs to become a bit softer so that it really won't be so brittle and break immediately. By relying on different conditions, using fire and water as these conditions, they can make it become softer and more malleable. If the mind is like this, when you are happy, you can turn that happiness into a path so that a happy mindset does not become excessively arrogant, but can be made gentle and subdued. When you are suffering, if you turn suffering into a path, the mind becomes pure and will not create more karma or hatred. Then both body and mind will relax, attain supreme pliancy and meditative concentration. In this way, in some of the bodhisattvas' meditative absorptions, there is pliancy and concentration. Pliancy, meditative concentration, anything is possible. Your mind becomes capable and things are accomplished with ease. If suffering may become spiritual practice and happiness can become a path, then this kind of practice, including meditative concentration within our practice of calm abiding, in the Abhidharma Kosha, there are explanations on pliancy and meditative concentration and pliancy absorption. So both body and mind become extremely capable. Even if the mind becomes distracted outwardly, it's not really a problem. Wherever you direct your mind, it obeys you completely. Not like our mind. What are our minds like at present? When you really want it to settle, it refuses and runs off. When you want it to wander, it comes back. It's like a particularly mischievous child. If the child is naughty, he won't study. Tell him play, he won't. I really want to stay here for a while and just watch the iPad. I don't want to leave yet. But if we attain pliancy and meditative concentration, then the mind is always truly capable at any moment. If you want it to settle, it can remain as steady as a mountain king. If you want it to move outward, expanding away from the center, it eventually reaches its target just like an arrow shot from a bow. Therefore, it becomes easy to attain the meditative absorption of lightness and ease. Also, when we transform suffering and happiness into the path, what merit does it have? It can enable the fundamental precepts, which are the root of all virtuous qualities, to be perfected. This is also the most profound key point of this method. In other words, the root of all our positive and virtuous qualities and attributes that we possess, actually, truly, the precepts, whether pratimoksha or bodhisattva precepts, for such precepts to be perfected, a key instruction is needed. But this key instruction is also the transformation of suffering and happiness into the path. If you can turn suffering and happiness into the path, they will definitely become a practitioner with pure precepts. Why is that the case, you may ask? To help you understand, the explanation for this will be provided in the following section. Not being attached to pleasure is the foundation for having supreme monastic precepts. Because by transforming pleasure into the path, one will not be excessively greedy for happiness at any time, in any case. They feel too much happiness is useless. You regard happiness as suffering, as an illusion, as impermanent. See it as something rare, as emptiness, and contemplate in this way. In this way, one can uphold the monastic precepts well. Therefore, transforming pleasure into the path, be it the monastic precepts or the lay precepts, Pratimoksha vow's foundation. Because many people who break precepts cannot transform pleasure into path. They believe there is real inherent happiness in the world and thus break the precepts. Not fearing suffering, that is, transforming suffering into the path, not being afraid of suffering. In this way, one's precepts become perfectly pure. His precepts are also able to remain pure. In fact, transforming pleasure into the path is the very foundation of the precept. If one can turn suffering into path, that is to say, our renunciation is one way transforming suffering and pleasure into the path. One of the best methods of practice. Therefore, generosity is the basis for keeping precepts. In Buddhist scriptures, it is said, generosity backs precept. Because the perfection of generosity is definitely the basis of the precept. When it comes to generosity, we must be free from greed and transform pleasure into the path. When you have wealth, you should be willing to let go of it, completely willing to give it away, and just as willing to offer it to others, to someone else who may truly need it. Because if you can perhaps transform suffering into the path, you can practice patience. And patience can purify the precept. It is often said in the Buddhist scriptures, generosity is the foundation of keeping precepts. It is a method of transforming pleasure into the path. The result of keeping precepts is actually patience. For it to achieve perfect purity, patience is needed. As for patience, it involves transforming suffering into the path. Because people can't turn suffering into the path. They develop anger and hatred within themselves. So the principle in the Buddhist scriptures can be easily and clearly understood right away by anyone without any confusion or delay. If we now practice according to this method, in the end, we will reach a higher state and level of realization. So what will arise in such a person? Such a state will arise. In our text, the Sutra Alamkara, it states, realizing all phenomena as illusions, one lives as if entering a pleasure garden. Those who have truly realized the emptiness of all phenomena use wisdom to realize all things, just as everything is empty. And conventionally, everything is like a dream or illusion. With deep and abiding compassion, wherever they are reborn, it is like entering a beautiful, peaceful garden. There is no fear at all. Such a person, without a doubt, possesses truly great compassion within their heart and soul, understanding that entering among sentient beings is simply like entering a garden with wisdom. They realize that all phenomena are like dreams and illusion. So whether it is prosperity or decline, no matter what appears in their life, at any given moment, there is truly no suffering, no affliction, and no fear at all. This verse is very important. You all should be able to recite it, right? Who can recite this verse? I've quoted it often. Can't recite it. It shows that you are not truly attentive in your study and contemplation. How many people can recite it? If you believe you can recite the passage we just discussed, please raise your hand now so I can see who is ready to participate. I'll be looking. You raise your hand, right? Come, recite it. Come on, who over there can recite it? No. All right, only 2 people. Just kidding, that's fine. This is still very important. What does it mean? It means we transform suffering and happiness into the path. This is an advanced realization. According to the commentary on the Sutra Alamkara, generally speaking, this is the realization of a first Bhumi Bodhisattva. However, if we attain a certain realization of the general aspect of emptiness, we can basically, essentially have a similar level of realization. So if we truly transform suffering and happiness into the path, and realize all phenomena like dreams and illusions, then wherever we go in samsara, today, when I go to the city, please bless me because I'm honestly feeling quite afraid right now, truly. I'm a bit worried and scared. Please give me your blessing. It wouldn't be like that. It would be just like entering a paradise. If you enter a garden, there isn't even the slightest worry. If I go back today, if I go into the city, even if it's a place affected by AIDS, or places with infectious diseases, or even a seriously afflicted and severely impacted disaster area, there is not the slightest fear or dread such is the bodhisattva. As for one's own prosperity or decline, these things wouldn't cause worry. Honestly, sometimes we feel that the state of a bodhisattva is enviable. But what are people like nowadays? Every day we worry, constantly anxious about gains and losses. We have hopes, but also worries, and our whole lives are like this. In the end, when you finally leave this world, now, your worries and your hopes, they're all gone completely. When you finally take your very last breath, at the closing moment of your life, you're still filled with worry. In this world, it really is like that. Realizing emptiness, how carefree and at ease one would be, right? Let's talk about transforming suffering and happiness into the path using the Buddha's biography. Before the Buddha finally attained enlightenment, during his long meditation, he turned suffering and happiness as a path. What then? He abandoned the rule of a universal monarch as if it were nothing more than a blade of grass. There were several universal monarchs then, and he was, by all accounts, a truly great and powerful universal monarch. Actually, at that time, King Shuddhodana's rule was not truly that, but perhaps he was called a universal monarch in name. Originally, if he had not become a Buddha, he would have become a universal monarch. And there were seers who prophesied this for him. At that time, the Buddha transformed happiness into the path, abandoning the rule and the throne of the kingdom. Abandoning them like grass, as if they are nothing, is like turning joy into the use of Tao, a transformation that changes happiness into a deeper purpose, transforms suffering to path. He practiced austerities for 6 years on the banks of the Nairanjana River, surviving on just a drop of water and a single grain of rice each day. As a result, he realized the nectar of self-benefit, which is the emptiness of all phenomena. Thus, he taught the should have taught. So, what did he actually teach? He taught that suffering and happiness are one and equal in nature. This was before the Buddha attained enlightenment in those days. Like him, we can too. We too, right now, what this very momentum Dharma friends indeed are here together, have given up their status, wealth, and more. Studying Buddhism is not easy. This should be transforming your happiness into the path, transforming suffering to path. Whether it's going into retreat somewhere or practicing, every day you personally fetch your own fresh water and carefully cook your own simple meals, turning suffering into path. Although it's not like the Buddha eating just 1 grain of rice a day, some people might eat a bit more with a big bowl in hand, enjoying 3 full meals every single day, following the same routine from morning to night, but not like living in the world. There is no such thing as wasting time every day. This is also before enlightenment, suffering and happiness as path. Then, after finally attaining Buddhahood at last, eventually, there are also situations of transforming suffering and happiness into the path. First, whether receiving homage from the kings of heaven up to Akanishta, all the kings, ministers, and rulers of our human world pay him homage. All pleasures and comforts are presented. This is an example of turning happiness into the path. The Buddha was blessed by all the respected kings and ministers of the world and of heaven. They made offerings and paid their respects to him. Use happiness as the path. On the other hand, the Buddha, the revered teacher, was also attacked by the Brahmin Bharadunda, who insulted and repeatedly reviled him in every possible way. There was also a Brahmin woman named Chancha, known for her slanderous tongue. She slandered him, alleging immoral conduct. In the vast territory of King Agni, when for 3 months he had to eat rotten barley meant for horses, what we call common horse feed and the like. This should have happened after the Buddha had attained enlightenment under the Bodhi tree. Suffering and happiness became way. The latter part is about transforming suffering into the path. Yet the Buddha did not become elated or dejected, but remained unmoved like Mount Meru, unaffected by the 8 worldly winds. Ordinarily, he would not be swayed by the 8 worldly winds and remain steadfast. Just like Mount Meru is not moved by the wind, the Buddha, too, would not be easily swayed by either praise or criticism from others in any circumstance. He benefited all sentient beings equally.
The earlier parts are generally much easier to understand, so there's really no need at all to elaborate further on them. Before attaining enlightenment, as everyone knows, in the Buddha's biography, he transformed suffering, happiness into the path. After attaining Buddhahood, in terms of offerings and the respect and veneration he received, everyone is also aware of this. In terms of transforming suffering into the path, the Buddha was slandered by the Brahmin Baradunda. As mentioned in the Mahaprajnaparamita Shastra, this Brahmin was especially malicious. At first, he came up with 500 schemes. This is mentioned in the Buddha's biography. He spent his days slandering the Buddha in every possible way. Yet the Buddha never developed any anger or hatred toward him because of this. Later, he eventually changed his approach again and praised the Buddha with 500 different compliments, extolling all sorts of virtue. But even with such praise, the Buddha did not develop any attachment or experience any sense of joy at all because of it. Though we have not reached the Buddha's level of realization in this world, when someone praises you, it may happen, but you shouldn't pay too much attention to it. There may be people who insult or slander you, especially now in the internet age. Today you're praised, tomorrow you're slandered, anything can happen. If you have fame, this is even more true for people with a bit of ability. At such times, if you are wise, you won't easily believe what others say in praise, or maybe it's not really like that. Does that person have such virtues when others slander you? Well, maybe they have other motives. It's not necessarily true. Others try to think this way when possible. It's the same for individuals. Maybe if you say something slightly inappropriate online, thousands of people may insult you. But if your actions or words happen to simply align perfectly with what others want to hear, then you be constantly flattered and praised. But in reality, none of this is truly substantial. You really shouldn't be so easily swayed by praise or by criticism. This is very important. This is one aspect. Secondly, this Brahmin woman actually, it seems like we've actually, talked about this before. At that time, there was a non-Buddhist Brahmin woman. The Buddha was apparently teaching the Dharma somewhere, it seems. She strapped a wooden basin to her stomach and in front of the crowd said, "The Buddha has behaved impurely with me. I am already pregnant," and so on. Later, it seems that apparently Indra couldn't stand it anymore. He transformed into a mouse and quietly slipped into her clothes. He gnawed through the strap with determination that was holding the wooden basin. Right then, the large wooden basin, which had been resting near the edge of the table, suddenly slipped and fell to the ground, falling softly from beneath her skirt. Everyone saw and realized that she wasn't actually pregnant. She got herself pregnant all by herself without anyone else involved. But even at that moment, the Buddha did not react in any particular way because of this. This is slender. And in the extensive biography, there are several incidents of people slandering the Buddha. There are also similar stories in the Great Secret Skillful Means Sutra. If it's convenient for you, I think that sutra actually isn't very long. It has accounts. And then there was the great king named Agni. In some translations of the Vinaya Sutra, he is called Agni. This King Agni as well, this king should be mentioned in the Vinaya Medical Affairs. Is he in extensive bio? It should be included, right? So what was his situation at the time? The Buddha had received invitations from many neighboring kings from the surrounding regions. King Agni felt that if he didn't invite the Buddha, it wouldn't appear to be good in front of others, especially to them. Then everyone was inviting people. So he invited them. He went to invite with great respect the most revered Buddha and his 500 attendants, inviting them all to his country to spend the 3-month retreat and provide them with offering. At that time, the Buddha agreed. After agreeing, King Agni returned to his own country. He issued an order to all of the citizens. This time I want to invite the Buddha to come to our country to accept offerings for 3 months. But during this period, as the king, I will provide all the delicious food. All offerings must come from me. None of the common people are allowed to make any offerings. If anyone does, I will, without hesitation, have them beheaded as a severe punishment. Naturally, none of the citizens dared to do anything. After he extended the invitation to all of his friends and colleagues, without exception, that night he had a strange, vivid dream. The entire palace was surrounded by white canopies. He found this rather baffling. He wondered what this dream might signify. The next day, he consulted a Brahmin who interpreted dreams. This Brahmin knew the dream was extremely auspicious and that making offerings to the Buddha would be very fortunate. However, due to his religious affiliation and his dissatisfaction with Buddhism, he deliberately said, actually, this dream is very inauspicious. If you don't go into seclusion for a full 3 months, the king might pass away, your life could be in danger, or you might just end up losing your throne. After hearing this, the king became quite worried. In order to very carefully protect his own life, he began a slow and cautious retreat. He neglected royal duties, ignored matters. At this time, the Buddha arrived in this country, bringing with him a total of 500 devoted disciples. After they had finally arrived, since no one in the royal palace had ever been instructed at all, no one ever made offerings to them. Then when they went to the common people to beg for alms, no one dared to offer anything either. At this point, it was almost time for the rains retreat again, and they had no choice but to settle down for the retreat. It was indeed a difficult situation. Then there was a foreigner, someone who was a foreigner from a big city outside the country. This particular foreigner, who was especially skilled, specialized in carefully and expertly raising, he had 500 horses, and he fed all 500 horses. He had a lot of horse feed and an abundant supply of grain, such as oats. He had faith in the Buddha. During 3 months, while Buddha and monastic community were in retreat, he decided to offer the horses the type of feed that, for some reason, the animals themselves were unable. All the rotten feed was given as offerings. The very best horse feed was absolutely not offered, only the more spoiled feed. In our Tibetan language, we traditionally call it barley, which is commonly used as a nutritious and essential horse feed. But perhaps the author Dampen Yima has never been to India. It seems that there is almost no barley in India. When His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok went there, he really wanted to eat sampa, but he was never really able to get any sampa. The sampa we brought from Tibet, in the end, nothing was usable. By the time we got to Namdroling Monastery, it was all spoiled. Lama Soton was unwilling to give it up. But on the top floor of the 4-story Namdroling Monastery, he ended up throwing it into the fields behind the building. He sighed, this sampa from Tibet, but now it's turned into something like dirt. He ate some and sighed, this is like mud. It had no taste at all. Later, all the sampa we brought ended up being unexpectedly thrown into the fields just behind the Namdroling Monastery, a place known for its tranquility. Behind Namdroling Monastery, peaceful and nestled quietly, there were nothing but local villagers' wheat fields. At that time, we still had some left, but let's not go into that story. I've talked about it too much already. What was I talking about just now? Oh, right. It was the horse feed. It seems that at that particular time, Modgalyayana and Shariputra. Yes, it should have been Modgalyayana and Shariputra. Shariputra couldn't eat the horse feed. It seems he had a kind of wind illness. He went up to a mountaintop accompanied by Modgalyayana. Later, at a subsequent time, they eventually received generous offerings and gifts. Buddha did not get them, those two did. As for the other 498 people, not counting the Buddha, 500, all of them, during those 3 months, lived poor conditions. Later, Ananda thought, the Buddha has already attained enlightenment. Why does he have to eat such filthy things? Later, the Buddha took the horse feed from the bowl. Ananda tasted it carefully, and it turned out to be delicious. It turns out the Buddha really is different from us. His state of realization is truly not the same. In the sutras, it is said, in a previous life of the Buddha, in the distant and ancient past, many ages ago, it seems there were also 500 disciples who went together with him at that time. He saw a Buddha and then felt deeply dissatisfied in their heart with that Buddha and slandered him. This ascetic should eat horse feed and so on. Because of this kind of specific karmic result, even after attaining Buddhahood, such retribution would indeed manifest. So, how should we put this? Actually, the Buddha, whether he was accused of or had to eat horse feed for 3 whole exhausting months just to survive, none of these things in any way truly affected or disturbed the Buddha's mind, not at all. All the beautiful, wonderful, glorious words of praise from heaven and earth, he felt neither superior nor inferior. On the other hand, during those 3 months, the Buddha also manifested physical signs like flesh thorns and brambles on his body, as well as headaches and various other karmic phenomena. But because of the Buddha's realization, because he values equality for all. And the meditative equipoise of the equality of all phenomena, he remained unshaken, just like Mount Sumeru. Similarly, he assisted countless sentient beings. This principle can be explained as follows. By breaking it down into its main components and examining each part individually, we can gain a clearer understanding of how it works. The above should cover all the subject matter and content of the treatise, as discussed. Among the beginning, middle, and end sections, the beginning and middle have been discussed. The final section, that is, the concluding teachings presented at the end of the text, in other words, the last part of the discourse. Such teachings ought to be delivered by those who have attained the state of not speaking harsh words during suffering and having strong renunciation during happiness, the great masters of the Kadampa tradition. In fact, the above teachings on transforming suffering and happiness into the path, many great masters of the Kadampa tradition, they truly possess such realization. What realization? When suffering, they would not complain often. I am in so much pain, I am so sad, no matter who they were talking to, I'm in a bad mood. Something happened at home recently. My house has been leaking recently. I don't dare to go out these days. I've been getting digestive problems. I've been having these disturbing nightmares every night lately. It's been really unsettling. I think I've been eating too spicy, too salty, or too greasy foods recently. I'm not feeling well emotionally, and so on. When we suffer, as ordinary people, we often talk about all sorts of unpleasant things, and we talk about them everywhere. Practitioners of the Kadampa tradition, when they are in fact suffering, such negative words do not come out of their mouth. And when they are happy, when we are happy, we might not handle it either, becoming arrogant or falling into laziness, as mentioned earlier. But these great masters, when they are happy, they feel that all phenomena, all things in samsara, there is nothing truly pleasurable. They develop an even stronger sense of renunciation toward the three realms of samsara. They see that happiness doesn't truly exist. So how could we still be attached even after everything? So these masters, even when it's hard, I won't be so fragile. Honestly, when I'm happy, to be completely honest, I'm not really that happy, not as much as you might actually think. Well, can we actually say it? Are we perhaps truly overjoyed? So what else is there really? What more could delighted, so very cheerful, radiant, and then with a bright, happy, joyful spirit, and then laughing out loud, which means finding something extremely funny or absolutely hilarious. What else? Laughing heartily. When you feel happiness bubbling up inside you, don't be afraid to let your laughter out. Laugh openly and joyfully whenever you are happy, because laughter is a wonderful way to, when they're happy, they're bursting with joy. When something tastes bitter, it often gives off a pleasant and appealing aroma. This means that even though the flavor might be sharp or strong, the smell can be surprisingly good and enjoyable, making the experience more interesting and complex. Here it says that such teaching should embody the Kadampa practitioner's state of equanimity toward pleasure and pain. They pass on these teachings. Others will see it as natural as it should be. And they themselves will feel confident in it as well. If an author like me is really truly humble, as I always strive to be, he says, if I try to explain how to make suffering happiness path, if I write it out like this, then even my own tongue would probably mock me because the tongue knows me best. It wouldn't even dare to speak out. This person, you have no realization at all. So how can you still talk such big talk, let alone others, even those closest to me? Even my own tongue might occasionally ridicule me. He would just feel a bit embarrassed about it. This is a kind of rhetorical device. In Tibetan Buddhism, this expression is common. A tongue itself has no mouth, so how could it laugh? It's impossible. But this is a personification technique. Even my own tongue would laugh at me. Perhaps in Chinese literature, we sometimes use this as well. If these great masters were the ones speaking, then both oneself and others would feel it's acceptable. Maybe. I guess I'm the same way. If some of you practitioners were to say it, everyone would probably think it's actually very good. But if I say it, there's really no need at all. If I cannot transform suffering and happiness into the path, maybe even my tongue. But it seems I haven't heard my tongue laughing. So perhaps it still accepts it. If I'm so worried, why write this treatise at all? But thinking that it's for the purpose of pacifying my own attachment to the 8 worldly concerns, that's a goal. As possible, we listen, we study, we read, and maybe our own 8 worldly concerns can be subdued. That's one aspect. Another is to plant some seeds of virtuous habits. So, with such intentions here, the old beggar in Chinese Buddhism, people often say, this poor monk,
while in Tibetan areas it's often said the old beggar. Danbi Nima wrote this at the Hundred Birds Grove. Hundred Birds Grove, some forests near where His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok was born. Even now, there are some practitioners in retreat there. It was probably in that place. Danbi Nima was usually in those areas where His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok was born in Qinghai. There's a beautiful Hundred Birds Grove there, and that's where he wrote it, creating his work there. He composed the piece right there at that very place and at that specific moment in time, creating it on the spot. Next, as I mentioned the other day, it was translated during the pandemic. This also truly embodies the enduring spirit of transforming happiness and suffering into the path. This Dharma teaching is now complete as intended.
Bandara